Hey guys, this is Mr. Mercatus, and today we're going to be looking at limiting reactants and access reactants. We're going to look at it kind of in a theoretical look, and then we're going to look at it how you're going to do the math computations. A limiting reactant is a reactant that when you're done with the chemical reaction, all of it is going to end up being used up. So far, when we've been doing perfect stoich, both of the reactants have been limiting. They both got used up if everything was perfect. But now we're going to be looking at one of the reactants is going to get used up, while the other is going to be in excess. That means that one of the reactants we're actually going to have too much of. And since we have too much of it, when it's all done and complete, there's still going to be some of that left over. The question is, how do we determine which one is the limiter, and how do we determine who's in excess? So let's look at a theoretical example here. Let's say you had a package of ham that has 24 slices in it, and a loaf of bread that has 20 slices. And let's say my sandwich that I prefer to have is going to have 3 slices of ham on it and 1 slice of bread. So I got 24 ham, 20 bread. How many sandwiches am I really going to ultimately make? And is there going to be anything left over from this reactant side? So if we take a look and we start thinking about the bread, well, I have 20 bread and each sandwich needs 2 slices of bread. So I can make 10 sandwiches. But when we look at the ham, I got 24 slices, but I need 3 slices each. So I can only actually make 8 sandwiches with the ham. So which one of the two, ham or bread, limits me? Well, it's the ham, okay? Because the ham is going to limit me to only 8 sandwiches. The bread, though, I'm going to have some stuff left over. Well, if I make 8 sandwiches, which is my maximum number I can make due to the ham, after making 8 sandwiches, that's 16 slices of bread. I'm going to have 4 slices of bread left over. That is our excess. 4 slices of bread is an excess. Okay? So now let's look at a real problem that kind of looks more like what we were doing. So if I'm going to take about 8 grams of aluminum, I'm going to mix it with 8 grams of chlorine, and they're going to have a chemical reaction to make aluminum chloride. Okay, which one is the limiter, and how much excess is going to be left over? So first, as always, we got to create our balanced equation. If we take a look at our balanced equation, 2 moles of aluminum to 3 moles of chlorine will give me 2 moles of aluminum chloride. Okay. You might want to write this equation down and pause so you can use this equation. Now, how do we find the limiter? Okay. Well, first we're going to do stoich. First, I'm going to use my first guy where I got 8 grams of aluminum. I'm going to go do the stoich, and I'm going to find out how much of the product I need to make. And in this situation, I'd make 0.3 moles of aluminum chloride. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the other reactant. I've got 8 grams of chlorine. I go ahead and do my stoich, and I'm finding out that I'm going to make 0.075 moles of aluminum chloride. If you notice, these two are the same guy I'm solving for, because I'm going to make a comparison. Now, which one of these two, like the ham, I only made 8 sandwiches of the ham, I could make 10 with the bread. Well, who's limiting me here? Well, he's making the lowest amount, so the guy who's limiting me is the chlorine. The chlorine is our limiting reactant, which means aluminum is going to be the one that I'm going to have left over, or excess. So now when you do future problems, this actually doesn't occur. Oops, I went back. I'm going to go back. This actually is now useless. This problem in green does not exist. It does not happen. But this information in yellow is going to happen. This is the information I can use for every other problem in the future. I can use 8 grams of chlorine, or I can use 0.075 aluminum chloride as any information I could use in a future problem. So from the last page, I know these two numbers are usable. So let's find out how much of the excess I'm going to have left over. So to do this, you must start the problem with usable limiting information, 8 grams or this many moles. And I don't care which one you use, they're both going to be fine. I decided to start off with the 8 grams of chlorine, and I did a stoich problem, and I was solving for the aluminum. The aluminum, like the bread, was the one that I had too much of. So what I did in this stoich problem was find out how much aluminum I actually needed to use. Like the bread, I had 20 slices of bread, but I only needed 16. Well, in this case, I only needed 2 grams of aluminum to go with 8 grams of chlorine. If I only have 2 grams of aluminum, then how much extra aluminum is left over? Well, if you remember, we had 8 grams of aluminum to start with. I only need 2.03 grams of aluminum based on the stoich problem. So I'm going to have basically 6 grams in excess, or 6 grams of aluminum still left over in the beaker or test tube wherever I'm doing the experiment. Now, let's do one on your own. So take a look at this example. I've got 9 grams of aluminum this time and 9 grams of oxygen to create magnesium oxide. Go ahead, figure out the limiter, figure out the excess. Right now, go ahead and hit pause, balance the equation. When you're ready, start it again. Okay, hopefully you've now got a balanced equation. Okay, so my balanced equation was this. Hopefully it matches yours. Okay, next step, go ahead and figure out which one was the limiter mathematically. Go ahead, pause, and when you're done solving those 2 stoich equations, open it up again and see what the answer is. All right, guys, hopefully you finished those 2 stoich problems to figure out your limiter. Okay, so I did a stoich problem for the magnesium, 9 grams, and found how much of the product I can make. And I did the stoich for the 9 grams of oxygen and figured out how much of the product I can make. And I noticed that this one is lower in amount, which tells me magnesium is the limiter, which means this problem is irrelevant information. All the information in green this time is the information that I can now use for a future information. What I'd like you to go ahead and do now is go ahead and find out how much of the excess you have left over. Go ahead, pause, and go ahead and figure that out. Hopefully you're done with doing that last part of this problem. Okay, so determining your excess remaining, you're going to start off with limiting information. We decided magnesium was the limiter, and I had 9 grams of it, and I found out that I needed only this much oxygen. So how much is then left over? Well, if you remember, we had 9 grams of magnesium to start with. Okay, so make sure you did start with these. If you didn't start with those 2 numbers, you started improperly. Okay. Now, if you remember, we had this many grams of oxygen needed, but we had 9 to start with. So if you take those 2 numbers and subtract, okay, you will have how much access that you will need. Hopefully you understand limiting reagents, and I hope this video helped. What's up, dude?
You flipping the classroom, kids. All right.